What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Just really quickly wanted to remind you guys I'm sponsored by Poker Bros. If you want to join my club, here it is right up here. They hooked your boy up with the merch. We're going to be playing as a sponsored pro this summer in Vegas. We might also do a Poker Bros road trip going through Texas, Louisiana, Alabama. So to find out all the information on that, subscribe to my channel because that might be the biggest thing this summer. Shout out to Poker Bros. Thanks for the sponsorship. Play as my face in the app to support the channel, and let's get into the video. What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is a special video. We got two videos put into one. We start off the action here in Los Angeles on the felt at the $2, $3 blind tables. First hand to note, we look down at ace king of spades from the low jack. I raise it up to $15 and the cutoff and the big blind both call. It's going three ways to the flop here with 47 in the pot. Flop's a good one for us. It comes ace, 8, 5, 2 hearts. And when the action checks to me from the big blind, we're in a position my poker coach likes to call monkey in the middle. When we're in between two players here, it's best to start off with a check, even when we smash the flop here with an ace. So that's what I do. I check, and the cutoff checks behind, so we're off to the turn. The turn now comes the 4 of diamonds, so now 6, 7 gets there, and deuce 3 gets there as well. But when the big blind checks to us here, it's time to start building a pot and getting some value from worse aces and other one pair type hands. So I bet $15 here, and the action's on the cutoff. Cutoff puts in the call, and the big blind gets out of the way, so we're heads up to the river here. The river now comes the 3 of diamonds, which is pretty much a brick. It shouldn't change too much if we were ahead on the turn. We are ahead on the river again. Action's on me. I bet $55 here into the $77 pot, and the cutoff pretty quickly calls. We show our ace king suited, expecting to be ahead a good portion of the time, but that's actually not the case here when the opponent actually turns over the exact same hand, ace king, and we're going to chop that pot. 300 in our stack. Next hand we look down at pocket ladies from the small blind. There's a bunch of limps to me, and I raise it up to $25. The under the gun, the middle position, and the hijack all put in the call. Strange action already here. We're going 4 ways to the flop. Flop comes jack, jack, 8, 2 hearts. We have the queen of hearts in our hand, but out of position against 3 other opponents. I decide to start with a check here. The action actually checks around, so we're going off to the turn. Turn comes the 9 of spades, and I decide to go with a check again here. I think it's likely that one of the opponents could have a jack here, in which case if we bet, we're going to get raised and be in a tough spot. However, if somebody puts in a bet here on the turn, I feel very comfortable putting in a call and seeing what happens on the river. That's what I do. I start with a check here, and the opponents actually check it around again. So we're off to a river here, which comes the 10 of clubs. We now back into a straight. We're only losing to king, queen, but we have 2 blockers to that. I think it's safe here to put in a bet. It's unlikely that anyone has a jack at this point based on the way they played it, but we still can get value from other hands. We put in a bet of $45, and the under the gun position player calls. We expose our pocket queens, and the opponent shows ace queen of spades, so we're going to chop that hand. It's unfortunate though, because I think a bet on the turn would have eliminated the ace queen from the hand, and we would have taken the entire pot. But I think I like my idea of going for a check call there on the turn. What do you guys think about that? Should I be betting or checking the turn there once the action on the flop gets checked through? Next hand of note, we look down at ace king suited from the cutoff. The straddle's on, there's 2 callers, and I'm going to raise it up here with a premium to $35. The big blind now shoves for $56, and the straddle puts in the call. Both the middle position players who call the $10 straddle fold, and the action's back on us here. We only have 2 options though. We can either call or fold. Unfortunately, we do not have the option of raising, so I make the easy decision to call, and we're going off to the flop 3 ways with 1 opponent all in. Flop comes 7, 7 deuce. Be a great time to be holding the elusive 7 deuce offsuit here, but that's not what we have. The opponent checks to us, and I decide to check behind. The turn comes the 3 of hearts, which doesn't change too much. We're still left with ace high here. The opponent checks to us again here, and with a dry side pot, I decide it's not important to bet here. We're going to go off to a river, which comes the queen of diamonds. The opponent checks to us again here, and I'm happy to go to showdown here with ace king high. I check behind. The big blind exposes his hand. He has ace jack offsuit. We beat that. The straddler doesn't want to show his hand, so we proudly show over ace king high. We're going to scoop that $182 pot. Next hand's a good one. I'm pretty proud of how I played it, and I hope you guys are too. We look down at ace 5 of diamonds from the hijack, and the straddle is on. I raise it up to $21 and only the straddle puts in the call. So going heads up to the flop here with 47 in the pot, which comes 9, 3, 8, 2 clubs, 1 diamond. We have some backdoor possibilities here, but when the straddle checks to us, I'm going to go for a C bet here. I bet $15. The opponent puts in the call, so we're going heads up to the turn, which comes the 4 of diamonds. A great card for us. Now gives us a gutter to the wheel. Additionally, it gives us the nut flush draw. The opponent checks to us again here, and I think it's important to be putting a lot of pressure on his one pair type of hands. He's coming out of the straddle, so it's likely he has some club flush draws of his own. Additionally, he could have some straight draws like 10 jack or 6 7. Or he could have a one pair type hand like a 9 or an 8. For that reason, I decided to bet big here for $90. The opponent doesn't think too long and puts in just less than 1 stack of yellows, indicating the call, and we're going off to the river. The river now comes the king of clubs, which is a better card for our range than it is his. However, as I mentioned on the turn, he could have some club flush draw hands that were getting sticky on the turn and put in the call. That's a little bit worrisome, but when the opponent checks to us from a third time here and doesn't shove his entire stack in when the club comes in, I think it's important to go for an all-in bet here, and this is why. We're left with just ace high here, and that's definitely not going to win it. We have the opponent covered here. He has around 175 left in his stack and has 257 in the pot, so it's around a 2/3 pot size bet if I decide to shove here. I think a shove will look very strong. We raised pre-flop. We have all the overpairs. We have all the ace kings, pocket aces, the hands that would want to go for 3 streets of value here. I think it's a mistake to check back here, and for that reason, I decide to put him to the ultimate test, and I go all in, covering him for 175 effective. Opponent doesn't look too happy, but eventually makes the correct decision in my book, and he puts in the fold. We're going to take down that pot here, and I think it's important to go for that bluff on the river there when our flush draw misses out, because we're going to be having a lot of value in our range there when we go for 3 streets as well. Alright guys, we look down at pocket aces, or as a subscriber of the vlog wants me to call it, allied powers. What do you guys think about that name? I think it's great. I think it's even better that we have pocket aces in a real money cash game here. I'm under the gun. I raise it up to $15, and my left and the button put in the call. So going 3 ways to the flop here with $50 in the pot. Flop is a wet one. It comes 10, 9, 6 with 2 clubs. There's some flush draws, some straight draw potentials out there, and this board will hit our opponent's calling ranges a lot more than it will our under the gun pre-flop raising range. For that reason, I decide to start with a check here, looking to see what the other 2 opponents want to do here. Middle position bets, but he bets a very small amount. He actually bets the minimum here, $3, and the button puts in the call. Action's back onto me here, and I think a $3 bet is just too strong to be a very good hand. So I'm going to want to be raising it here and protecting against the flush draw and straight draw possibilities. I raise it up to $30. Middle position now goes for a very strange play, and he 3-bets me now to $145, and the button pretty quickly gets out of the way. I don't really know what makes sense here. If he had a strong hand on the flop, would he really be betting $3? I don't really think so. It's a tough decision for me here, but with pocket aces, we have a lot of possibilities to counterfeit a 2-pair, like a 10-9 type of hand or a 10-6, 9-6 type of hand. I think our hand is too strong to fold here. We under-repped it by checking and then going for a bet, I think. So I'm going to put in the call here for 145 and evaluate the turn. Turn is a pretty bad card. It comes the queen of clubs. It brings in some straight draws, and the front door flush draw comes in. I check. The middle position player now shoves all in for 550, which is either very good or very bad for us. It probably gets us off the hook here, and we're going to have to fold. That's why I say it's probably a good shove. If he bet a little bit smaller, we could be incentivized to call and see a river. But when he bets 550 here, I make the pretty easy fold, and I show my aces face up, hoping to get him to show his hand as well and see what hand he played in this very strange manner. For the vlog, he shows us 7-8 offsuit, and he flopped the straight, so he went for the min bet, and then he went for the 3-bet on the flop with the nuts, basically. He's going to scoop that pot there. I think, like I said, if he bets a little bit smaller on the river there, he probably gets a little bit more value from my aces. Although we are up against a lot of things there when the queen of clubs comes in on the turn. I could be folding the flop, but I think I lost the minimum. After that hand, we decide to top up for another $100. We look down at pocket tens from the big blind. The button raises to $15, then the small blind calls. I'm going to raise it up here to $53, looking to protect my hand and build a putt. The button folds, which is strange, and now the small blind shoves for $100. The way the small blind played this hand is already strange, and given the fact he only has $100, which is like $40 more to me, I put in the call and we're going off to a run out. Flop comes ace, queen, 4, which is a pretty bad flop for our pocket tens. Turn comes the jack of hearts, and the river comes the 7 of diamonds. Opponent shows 8, 9 of spades here, and we flip over our pocket tens and scoop that $215 pot. We rack up our chips and head to the cage. We get out of the game for $466, so a profit of $66 on that session. We get some sleep and head back to the bicycle casino the very next day to play some 5-5. We sit down at the 5-5 table and we buy in for $1,000, which is the maximum, and we're immediately rewarded with allied powers again here, pocket aces from the under the gun +1 position. The straddle's on, so I make it $40, and the middle position player and the button both put in the call, so going 3 ways to the flop here with $140 in the pot. Flop comes 9, 10, deuce, 2 spades. We hold the ace of spades in our hand, which is very important, and we decide to go for a $50 c-bet here into the 2 other opponents, and the middle position player now takes a strange line and raises us to $150. The button makes an even stranger play and goes for the cold call, which I think is very strong. So when the action's back onto me here with the ace of spades in our hand, I think we can't fold just yet, even though the action is pretty strong at this point. I put in the additional $100 and we're going off to the turn. The turn now comes the 9 of hearts, which brings in the backdoor heart draw, but doesn't really change too much. Additionally, it makes pocket 9s a little less likely, as there's only one combination of pocket 9s now, and that makes quads. But given it went raise, call, call on the flop, I decided to start with a check here, and the middle position player bets again for $250. I'm planning on calling this $250 bet here, as the action didn't really change too much on the turn. But now the button shoves all in for $750, which is a very strong play here. And I don't think he's doing this with air. It's not too often that you see at the 2-3 or the 5-5 tables, people have the cojones to go for the all-in bet here with just like king or jack high or spade flush draw. For that reason, I don't think our pocket aces are good here. We do beat 2 pair. The only potential 2 pair hand here is 10 deuce, and I don't think they're calling that pre-flop for $40. So I make the fold. Fortunately for us, the middle position player decides to fold as well, so we were definitely ahead of him, but we're not going to be able to see what the button has, and he's going to take down that $850 pot. We top back up to $1,000 when we add on for $200 more, and we look down at king, queen of clubs from the button. Couple limps, the cutoff decides to raise it up to $25 here, and I have a decision between 3-betting or calling here. I think a 3-bet is better most of the time, but in this specific situation, I decided to just put in the call. That brings in 3 more players. It brings in the small blind, big blind, and the low jack, so I probably should have gone for the 3-bet here. But anyways, we're going 5 ways to the flop. 125 in the pot. The flop comes 5, 6, deuce, 1 club. Action checks to the cutoff, who bets $20. And for a price that small, I'm going to be putting in the call as well. If someone behind us decides to go for the 3-bet, I think we can pretty easily get out of the way here. But for $20, I put in the call, and the small blind and the big blind do as well. The low jack gets out of the way, so we're going 4 ways to the turn. Turn comes to 4 of clubs, which brings us exponentially more outs now. We have all the club outs here, so when the small blind checks, the big blind now bets $105 into the $205 pot, around a half pot size bet here, and the cutoff puts in the call. With the board not being paired, I think I like a call here, because if we hit a club, we're most likely going to scoop the pot. We're only going to be behind some ace high flush draws here, but given the price here, we're getting an insane price. I think we have to put in the $105 here and go off to a river. The small blind gets out of the way, so that's exactly what's happening here. We lose 1 more player, we're down to 3, and we're off to a river. River now comes the king of diamonds, which is an interesting card because although we miss our club flush draw, we do make top pair here with a king. The big blind now shoves all in for around $1,000. It's definitely a strange play here, and we're going to have to think about it if the action folds to us. But when the cutoff calls his $1,000 bet, there's really no decision for us here. We make an easy fold. The big blind shows his hand, 7-8 offsuit, so he turned a straight. He has the nuts. The cutoff mucks his hand, and the big blind is going to scoop that $2,600 pot. Nice hand, sir. Next hand, we get the exact same hand, this time just the heart variety, king, queen of hearts, and my right opens to $25. I learned my lesson. I decided to 3-bet now to $75 instead of just putting in the flat call to $25, and the action folds back around to him, and he puts in the call. So we're going heads up to the flop here with $160 in the pot, which comes 9, 6, 9, 2 diamonds. The opponent checks, and I decide to go for the check back here. I think king high can be good a good portion of the time. Additionally, we have a lot of backdoor outs, and we're not afraid of too many cards on the turn. So going heads up to the turn. Turn now comes the 7 of hearts, which is one of those cards. We pick up the heart flush draw, and when the opponent checks to us again here, I think it's important to go for a semi-bluff and bet $45. The opponent pretty quickly folds, so we're going to scoop down that pot with king high. Next hand of note, we look down at ace-10 of clubs from the button. The straddle's on, the cutoff now raises to $30. With a hand like ace-10 suited, I think we should be 3-bet or calling here. I put in the call this time, and the small blind calls, and the straddle calls as well. So going 4 ways to the flop here with ace-10 of clubs. 120 in the pot, the flop comes ace-7-4, 2 clubs. We smash this flop. Action surprisingly checks to me though, and I decide to go for a little bit of deception here, having this board pretty much locked up. We're not really scared of too many cards on the turn. I check it behind. Turn now comes the king of diamonds. So if we were behind ace king already, it doesn't really change too much. The action checks to me again here, and I think we need to start building the pot. So I bet $60, around half pot. The straddler puts in the call, but the small blind and the cutoff both get out of the way. So we're going heads up to the river with $240 in the pot. The river comes the king of hearts, which is an interesting card. The straddler checks to me, and I think we have an interesting decision between betting or checking. I lean more towards a check in the situation, and here's why. The opponent maybe could have called us on the turn with a king, thinking that we couldn't have an ace there when we check back the flop. But when the king comes on the river, it's going to give him the best hand a good portion of the time. Additionally, if he had some club flush draws, he's probably not going to be calling a bet on the river when he doesn't bet into us already. So I decide that a check back is the best play here. And just get to showdown and see if we're good with our pair of aces. Sure enough, we are. The opponent chose 8-6 offsuit for the gutter to the straight there on the flop and the turn. And he doesn't get there on the river, so we're going to take down that $240 pot with our pair of aces. Next hand of note, we're on the button with king 8 of spades. Under the gun raises to $15. The under the gun +1 puts in the call. The hijack calls. We're getting a decent price here to just call. I usually don't do this with king 8 of spades, but I've been reading all your comments. You say I'm a nit. I'm going to prove you wrong here. I put in the call for $15. Action down the small blind now, who decides to be the spoiler of the party and raises it to $75. All the opponents put in the call here, and I didn't play king 8 suited for $15 to fold when everybody else calls this raise here. So I make the call for $60 more, and we're going multi-way here to this flop in a bloated one with $380 in the pot. Flop's an interesting one. It comes 9, 6, 8, 2 hearts. It's a possible straight out there, so there's some backdoor heart draws, and against 4 other opponents here, it's likely that our 8 is not good. Our concerns are confirmed when the under the gun position player now bets $300 into 3 other opponents, which is very strong. And you know what else is strong? When the hijack and the small blind decide to go all in for less here. We have a no-brainer decision. Funds up. King 8 suited into the muck, and we're going to see this 3-way all-in pot off to the turn and the river. Turn comes the jack of diamonds. The river comes the queen of hearts. We were just left with a pair of 8s. The under the gun shows pocket 8s for a flopped set, but the hijack's going to scoop this entire pot here with the rivered heart. He has 3-4 of hearts here, and he's going to scoop that $1,230 pot. We add on for $200 more, so we have an even $1,000 in our stack. We're in the under the gun +1 position with pocket 9s. I raise it up to $20, and the button and the big blind call. So we're going 3 ways to the flop here with 65 in the pot, which comes 5, 6, 6. Pretty good flop for us here, but we're monkey in the middle, as I like to call it again here, in between 2 opponents. So when the big blind checks to me, I decide to check, and the button checks behind. Going 3 ways still to the turn. Turn now comes the 8 of diamonds, which is a decent card for us. We still have an overpaired to the board. The big blind checks to us here, and now I decide to put in a bet for $40. Just looking to go for some value here. Maybe someone has an 8 and they'll pay us off. The button now makes a strange play and raises us to $90, and the big blind gets out of the way. Action's back on us here, and for $50 more with a gutter to the straight, I don't think we can fold here. This is a very polarized bet here from the button. I think he'll be calling with a lot of his one pair type of hands, so he's basically saying that he has a straight, a boat, or nothing. So given that information, he's basically saying that he has a 6 in his hand, maybe pocket 5s, or he turned a boat with pocket 8s. For that reason, and given the price, I put in the additional $50 and we're going heads up to the river. The river is a decent card for us, comes the 7 of hearts. We now have the straight to the 9, and we double block 9-10, although I don't think he'll show up in the situation with 9-10 too often. I decided to check in flow here. I think we have an interesting decision between checking or betting, but I lean more towards checking because if we bet here and get raised, it's likely we'll have to fold our straight against a boat or a bluff, and I think I just want to get to showdown here, and I think the best way of doing that is going for a check call. The button doesn't want to bet though, he checks behind. We show our pocket 9s for the rivered straight. He looks a little bit disgusted but flashes us his cards and then throws them into the muck, so we take down that $245 pot with our rivered straight. The opponent to our right wanted to take a shot at Rampage. He was doing it all night on the table, so I decided, hey, if you're going to talk crap about Rampage, let's at least put it in the vlog here and give him a chance to respond. This is what he said. What did you say?
Hey Ethan, you're a horrible PLO player, my friend.
$1,000 in our stack. We look down at pocket jiggities from the cutoff. I raise it up to $30, which is a standard raise at this table. The button and the big blind put in the call, so we're going 3 ways to the flop here with $95 in the pot, which comes 3, 6, 9. Usually monkey in the middle here and between 2 opponents. I like to go for a check, but when the big blind checks to me here, there's not too many cards I'm going to be scared of on the turn, so I decide to bet small for $35, and the button puts in the call. The big blind gets out of the way, so going heads up to the turn here, which comes the deuce of clubs. I think it's likely when the button just calls us on the flop. He doesn't have too many sets or 2 pairs in his hand. He most likely will have a ace-9, king-9 type of hand. Additionally, he could have some spade draws. For that reason, I decide to bet big here for $175, just looking to target all the draws and the 1-pair type of hands, figuring that I'm good in this situation. My thoughts are confirmed here. I am good. The button puts in the fold, and we're going to drag that $165 pot with our overpair. Same hand, same position, pocket jiggities from the cutoff. I raise it up to $20. We get called from the small blind and the big blind, so we're 3 ways to the flop, this time in position though, which comes 4, deuce, 6, 2 hearts. There's a lot of draws out here, a lot of 2-pair possibilities from the small blind and the big blind. 3-5 is a straight, a lot of sets as well. The action checks to me here, and for those reasons, I decide to check it back. Turn is an interesting card. It shouldn't change too much, although 5-7 now gets there. It comes to 8 of clubs. Small blind now leads for $40, which is 2/3 pot size bet. The big blind puts in the call. I think the big blind is capped here. He shouldn't have too many strong hands when he just calls the small blind's bet. Small blind could have some pretty strong hands here, but I think with an overpair hand here, and we don't have a heart in our hand, so that unblocks them from having hearts in their hand, I decide to go for the raise to $125. Small blind gets out of the way, which is definitely good news for us. I thought he was the stronger of the 2, and now the big blind puts in the call for $85 more, so going heads up to the river with the big blind. River comes the king of spades, which is a card that shouldn't change too much. We shouldn't be scared of the king of spades here. If he did connect with the king of spades, it's likely that he had the king of hearts in his hand and he was going for a heart flush draw and then just backed into the pair of kings. The big blind checks to us again here, so I don't think he's too strong in this situation. For that reason, I'm going to go for some thin value here and target the 1-pair type of hands. I bet $75 here. I think it's important to be going for value here when the king doesn't change too much. A couple months ago, I probably would have been scared by the king of spades, thinking, oh, he might have the king here. I'm just going to check behind and go to showdown. But I think going for the extra small value here is important in the long run. If he calls us with an ace-8 of hearts type of hand here, or a pair of 6s, something like that just doesn't believe us. In the long run, that's going to add up, and the $75 is definitely going to improve our win rate. In this situation, the big blind puts in the fold, so we're just going to take down that $250 pot, but I'm pretty happy with the way I played this hand. Last hand of the night, we look down at pocket queens. The straddle is on. I make it $35 and only the straddle puts in the call. Swing heads up to the flop here with $70 in the pot, which comes 6, 5, deuce, 2 hearts. Pretty wet board here, and when the straddle checks to us here, I think we need to go for a check back. And the reason is he's going to have more sets here than us. He's also going to have more 2 pairs. He's going to have some heart draws and some random straight draws as well. I think he will be check raising at a high frequency here, and I don't really want to bloat the pot here with our overpair. We decided to go for the check back here on the flop, and we're hoping hoping for a clean turn. Turn's a decent one. It comes the 5 of spades, which pairs the board. We now beat 6 deuce, although I don't really think he's going to have that. Additionally, it's unlikely that he has a set of 5s now because pocket 5s now is quads, and there's only one combo of that. Straddle checks to me again here, and I decide that it's time to go for a bet. Queens is a very strong hand in this situation, and we under-repped it on the flop. I bet $45. Straddle puts in the call here, so we're still heads up to the river. The river now comes a 9 of diamonds, so the obvious front door straight draw now makes the nuts straight. The opponent checks to us a gun here, and I think we need to be going for another street of value. I think that pocket queens are a strong enough hand here to do so, and when we check the flop and he calls us on the turn, I think he will be calling us here with pocket 7s to pocket 9s a good portion of the time, so I decide to go for $105. Opponent now does something strange, and he goes for the check raise to 280. He's basically repping very strong hands or bluffs, and I think there's a lot more bluffs in his range here than strong hands when I check the flop. For that reason and for the price, I just can't get away from pocket queens here. We still have an overpair to the board. We have 2 pair. We flick in 1 chip indicating the call, and sure enough, he shows us the bad news for 7-8 of diamonds. He called us on the turn to get there on the river, went for the check raise and got the max value, and he's going to scoop that $700 pot. We rack up our chips and head to the cage after that disappointing last hand. Yo, what's up you guys? We got out of the game for $1,011. So a net loss of $389, which isn't the worst. Truman got into a weird spot there in that one.
It's always tough, baby.
And Rampage was here in spirit when the dude roasted him. I only got one funny clip, but the dude was going ham on him, saying like, why is he drop shipping like posters and like making all these things? So I don't know. Love you, Rampage. All right, guys, make sure you like the video. Subscribe if you're new. Leave a comment down below, and I'll check you guys in the next video. Peace. Thanks for watching to the end of my video. Click my head below to subscribe and stay in the loop. See you next time.